Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Tim Scott Uncancelled with me, Tim Scott. Great to have you with us. Whoever you are, wherever you are, and however you are listening. And talking of how you can listen, you can find us on YouTube, for example. If you go to YouTube and you type in unprecedented TV, you'll find us. And if you can give us a cheeky follow or a subscribe, so much the better. So we have a guest as ever, and I'll be introducing him in a moment. It's Alan Cook, a friend of the show and a reform councillor for Bromley in South East London. And great to have him back on the show. And he is somebody who knows Nigel Farage quite well. So we do have a reform story coming up. And as ever, we look inside the papers. We go behind the front pages. We go out and we buy the newspapers so you don't have to. We go past the front pages, which you normally get on the evening TV shows for the next day. And we look at the stories behind and beyond the front pages. And we always try and end with a slightly humorous and a light-hearted one. And we've got that again today. So the stories and our guest coming up in a minute. And folks, what times we are living in, what a day, what a week we've had. I was at a meeting on Tuesday evening with Andrew Rosendale, the latest recruit from the Tories to reform. Very interesting to hear what he had to say. But we are politically independent here. We don't necessarily sway one way or the other. Where I live here, we have a very good Conservative MP, Joy Morrissey, for example. So talking of politics, we're often told that politics are won from the so-called centre ground, the middle of the road. Well, you can get run down by the traffic coming in both directions, but at least you have a choice of gutters. And business as usual, we're told, is the way to win elections. Where has business as usual got us? It's got us in the mess we're in now. Whether you believe Britain is broken, that B word, whether you believe it's broken or not, we're certainly a country that has serious problems despite so much going for us. And I much prefer the phrase common ground to centre ground. And there's a new common ground emerging in British politics, a new consensus emerging in British politics. That immigration, for example, immigration's been too high, taxes are too high, we're over-regulated, we need to boost our defences, and that our national identity and culture has been changing too fast and too radically. This is the new common ground, I think, of British politics, which political parties, whoever they are, would be well advised to lean into, in my view. But enough from me. It's time for our news stories. We've got some great ones for you today. And so let's welcome our guest, a friend of the show, Alan Cook, Reform Councillor. Alan, great to have you back on the show. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me, Tim. It's good to be back on the show.
Okay, thank you. And what have you been up to lately? Anything worth sort of commenting on? You're an active kind of guy. What have you been up to?
Yeah, well, I'm actually the chair of the Bromley branch, so
oh, good.
Yeah, there's quite a lot going on within the party. You know, we're still riding high in the polls. I think we've led the last 200 polls. So activity-wise, the party's never been busier, and very much locally as well. We had a branch meeting this week, and a good 70, nearly 80 people came along to that. So it's mainly, I'm doing this full time now. So politics for me is the way forward, and you know, my background is not politics; it was IT. So yeah, I've got a bit of business experience behind me, which I see.
That's valuable,
very helpful.
Not enough MPs, particularly in Labour, have got any business experience. Have you? You must have noticed that, Alan.
Well, yeah, everyone knows the front bench hasn't, but actually, nor has the Tory front bench. You know, that's why we as a party are looking at doing things differently, and we're going to go to industry to get the kings of industry to actually help out in their relevant fields, as opposed to planting an MP with no experience. into, say, the health sector and say you can run the health sector for a year or two and then swap out and put them into transport. So yeah, we will be using kings of industry ministerial roles so we can actually improve the lot of this country, because I think the consensus is that Britain is broken. That's a nice picture of me in Croydon. So even though I'm a councillor in Bromley, so well done there.
So Croydon, another Labour Uncancelled that went bust. I seem to remember. But yeah, Alan, there's I've always thought there should almost be a law that you can't become an MP, for example, until you've spent 5 years doing something else and made a success of it. If you look at Labour's front bench, I think the Tories do have a bit of business experience, but I mean, Labour certainly. I mean, who are you, to coin a phrase? It's all trade union reps, career politicians, and lawyers.
Lawyers. So your test would fall down straight away because the majority of them are lawyers. I certainly wouldn't want to be represented by any number of them, to be honest. So no, it's not a great situation, and that's why we're offering actual proper change to the way the whole of the country potentially could be run, as opposed to Labour's running slogan for the last general election, which was just change. They didn't say what they were going to change, or they didn't even say it was changed for the better. And I think we've very much worked out that actually it's changed for the worse.
Indeed. Well, let's get straight into our first story, which is from the Daily Mail, and I think it's a good one for Alan. Now, as I said earlier, when we're not Reform TV. We have a broad range of guests. We had the broadcaster Linda Doobally on last time. Time before that, we had Stephen Ballard from the SDP. Next week, I've got Simon Calvert from the Christian Institute. And hopefully the week after that, I'll have a guy from Australia. That'll be very interesting. But let's get straight into this story. And I've noticed recently the Mail being seemingly more reform-leaning, more Tory-leaning, the Mail, and the Express seemingly being more reform-leaning. And so this one's from the Mail. Reform may have already hit peak popularity, poll experts suggest. Calls once again for the parties on the right to unite. Support for Nigel Farage's party has cooled. The right must unite, says the Daily Mail, predictably perhaps. And then you've got that little story about down the bottom there about all the cancelled elections. 4 million people denied the vote. So what do you think, Alan? Has Reform peaked, or peaked too early, perhaps?
No, it's our first hiccup in the polls. And in here they're saying we've gone down to 29% and the Tories have gone up to 19%. The last poll out yesterday has put us back up to 32%, and the Tories lower. So there's a tiny little dip in our polling, and all of a sudden there's a whole article in the Daily Mail about it. Tomorrow's wrapping for your fish and chips. Really, we've led over the last 200 polls. We're the largest party by membership, and the last 200 polls have put us ahead of the others. So how far ahead has just changed a little bit. We certainly haven't peaked. John Curtis, I normally respect his views. Maybe they got him on a Saturday morning after a big Friday night or something, but he hasn't. He's clearly not got this one right. And he thinks we're going to peak at 32 and won't go any higher. Well, I'd put money. I'd bet him a fish dinner that actually we're going to peak a lot higher than 32.
Yes, he says that, doesn't he? I mean, and John Curtis, yes, like you, from Strathclyde Uni, I've got a lot of time for him, and a great pollster pundit. He says 32%. He imagines 32% is the height of what it can achieve, because its vote is a very, very niche market. Well, people were saying that when Reform got to 25.
Right. Exactly. And when there's common sense being a niche market, what he's saying just doesn't make sense. And later on in that article, it says that if the right combine, we could get to 40%. I think we're going to get to 40% as we are anyway. And the right can't combine for a number of reasons. one, if we do any sort of a pact with the Tories, we'd lose our support instantly. So we're never going to do that. Anyone that suggests it is always from the Tory party or a Tory party leaning newspaper. So it's never going to happen. We've said that. Nigel has said that over and over again. There will not be any pact with the Tories. The Tories are a broken brand. They've lost trust. And what they did to this country over the 14 years, it was bloody terrible, and they need to pay for that. So the trust in that relationship is broken, and what we have been doing is taking the best out of the Tory party and leaving the rest, because even the term "the right unite" is illogical, because the Tory party is no longer a centre-right party. It's a global socialist party, which has removed sovereignty from Parliament and giving it to the Bank of England. It's given it to the lawyers, international law. It's doing the same again now. Labour is with the EU. So no, they're not even a right-wing party. The majority of their parliamentary party should be in the Lib Dems.
Yes, Nigel has suggested.
Does not make sense. It doesn't ring true. So it's a shame. I normally respect John Curtis.
Yes. Interesting comments there, Alan. I think it's certainly true. I say as a former Tory activist, they had 14 years across 4 elections and 5 prime ministers, and they just failed to deliver. Failed
to deliver, Tim. What they did is destroy the country. We've seen the highest tax since the war, the tax burden for working people, the highest levels of people taking benefits, and this is what Labour inherited. So of course it's going to get worse, because the Tories have done what the Labour Party normally do, and they just haven't operated as a Thatcherite party, as a small c Conservative party. They've been global socialists. So it's all very predictable. And the One Nation Tories, they still don't or haven't apologised for what they did to this country. They don't see that they were at fault. Kemi is still, twitting on about how they are going to rise again. And, she's not a bad politician, but the problem with the Tory party is not the leader. So, they've lost Jenrick, which was their only plan B. So now they don't have any plan B at all. And they might as well, you say the right unite. I think the Tories should unite with the Lib Dems. They'd have a great chance. They've done it once before. So you never know.
This was part of the frustration that I know Jenrick and Andrew Rosendale had. That I feel, Alan. I think even if the Tories were to win again, they talk. Andrew said this Andrew Rosendale said this on Tuesday evening. The Tories, they talk a good game in opposition, but then they get into government and they go all soggy. And I raised with him on Tuesday just a list of things that the Tories started or that they introduced: the smoking ban, high migration asylum hotels, non-crime hate incidents, net zero by 2050, loads more quangos, a football regulator, the Chagos Islands deal. I mean, I could go on. There's a list. There it is. It's in there. A list of things that the Tories.
It's terrible what they've done to this country. They should not be given another chance to actually govern this country at all. I've been dealing with Andrew Rosendale with regards to the Chagos Islands. I was in the comments recently, and Richard Tice as well. And we're still battling away hard to try and stop that deal. And I was talking to Robert Jenrick in the GB News studio. Sorry, shouldn't mention another TV channel. The night before,
I'm on it sometimes.
The night before the leadership election, and I said to him, Robert, you're saying all of the right things. However, they're going to fall on deaf ears with your party, and even if you do win, they won't let you actually do what it is you want to do. So I'm glad he's come over to us, because the rhetoric he is saying, we will actually ensure that it happens. We will close the borders. We will deport the people that shouldn't be here.
Yeah, good. Okay, Alan, thanks for your. We must move on. Thank you for your views on that. And I think, yes, I think both Rosendale and Jenrick are a good catch for you guys in reform. Okay, let's go on to our next story. This is from The Guardian, just to assure you that we do look at a range of newspapers, and actually we've got a couple of clips here which are linked, so one from The Guardian and one from The Express. Asylum seekers moved into ex-army base amid protests. I mean, look at the picture there. I mean, you know, people are being red pilled. You know, people are being radicalized by the truth, by events and what's going on. The first group of asylum seekers has been moved into a former military camp in East Sussex, the Home Office has said. Crowborough training camp received 27 men in the early hours of yesterday morning. Apparently they were brought in at 3:30 at dead of night. The number will be scaled up. It's one of two camps identified by ministers. I believe the other one is up near Inverness in Scotland. Mind you, the SNP are always telling us how much they want to welcome migrants. The other being in Inverness. Using language that reflects the Home Secretary's hardline stance, says The Guardian. Mahmood says that the move was part of a plan to transfer people from hotels into large-scale accommodation. And then if we, before we get Alan's comments, let's just get the next clip. This is from The Express. Mahmood barracks just the start for migrant sites. Are you going to have any of these near you, Alan, down in Bromley?
No, thank God, and not even HMOs. So we're lucky in that respect, because you know I have two young daughters. I would fear for their safety, which I think is the main concern for a lot of the people who are out campaigning in Epping and here and other places up and down the country.
Yeah, so yes, it says here, Shabana Mahmood vowed to open site after site to house migrants, despite outrage as the first asylum seekers moved into an army training camp yesterday. There's a picture of quite a nice bedroom there, a couple of twin, at least they're putting two to a room. They haven't all got their own room, which of course makes it more expensive. 27 who arrived in the UK on small boats arrived by bus at 3:30 following months of local protests. And Shabana Mahmood vowed to ram through more migrant accommodation on large sites as the government closes asylum hotels. Well, it's all very well saying, you know, we need to close asylum hotels. And by the way, I do think we should take some people on a purely refugee basis, but not like this. We need to take people, in my view, we need to take people legally. We need to take them direct from the region. We should take them in family groups so that they've got each other's support. They've got a support network. And at the moment, we're getting 85% young single men coming across the channel in dinghies. Many of them, of course, are economic migrants. Some of them, yes, fleeing difficult parts of the world. And if we take people properly, if we can vet them first when they get here, we can say to them, not only are you allowed to work, you are required to work. That's what I think we should do. We can and we should take some people. I'd let Parliament decide how many we take. But Alan, this system is completely chaotic. It's grossly expensive and it's hugely open to abuse, isn't it?
Well, this is not getting tough, is it? This is just trying to cut the taxpayers' bill for looking after these illegal immigrants. It's not getting tough on it at all. Getting tough would to be actually to detain them, not let them roam around, and then deport them. Detain, deport. The best thing to do is don't let them come here. You know, pick them up in the Channel as they're doing now, but instead of taking them to Dover, take them to Calais. We can do that under international law. That is getting tough, actually stopping the illegal immigration problem. You know, this is, you know, you're saying, oh, we can't stop taking asylum seekers. No, of course we shouldn't. True asylum seekers, we've always welcomed, and we will continue, even under a reform government, we will continue to accept true asylum seekers. What we'll get rid of is the illegal immigrants and also the economic migrants. It's quite simple, it's common sense, and it's humane. You know, I think anyone can wander to any English embassy anywhere in the world and say, please, can I claim asylum? You know, so they don't have to come here illegally. I think, actually, you know, when you have the people of the country taking the government to court, you know something is broken. Yeah. And over and over again, local villages and towns are uniting and taking the government to court. The government has got it wrong. The government is not looking after the citizens of this country. It is not putting them first, and that has to change. And it will change under us, but it certainly didn't change under the Tories. It got worse under the Tories. The immigration levels we've never seen before under the Tories.
Yes, unprecedented numbers.
Yeah. So it's not going to get any better under Labour. They made that clear. They're going to try and spend less on them when they get here. But I think we should have something a little bit more radical when they're potentially bringing 500 undocumented males into Crowborough. I have a friend who lives down there, so they're worried as well.
Yeah.
I think we should put the government on notice. In English law, we do have something called corporate manslaughter. So if through negligence someone is killed at work, the bosses can be taken to court. And why don't we do that with the government? So if the Home Secretary is happy to dump 500 undocumented males who are from a different culture, who treat women differently, if she is happy to dump them on a small village, I think if there's a single sexual attack, a single rape, a killing, a mugging, an attack of any description, I think her and all of her cronies and her minions and the people behind doing this should be prosecuted. Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But they don't seem to care. They just inflict this on the people, the citizens of this country, and don't seem to care about it. We need to get tough. We need to start prosecuting them.
People should certainly take whatever reasonable legal resources are open to them. Epping tried, of course, it got knocked back. I think another thing that's going to run on this issue, Alan, is they're using former army camps, but we've had nearly 200,000 young single men, mostly young single men, 85% young single men, come across the Channel. These are just the people that we know about. We've had many others who are not here legally. They've overstayed their visa. They've come in the back of a lorry, that kind of thing. And I know Rupert Lowe's been going on about the numbers of people in the country. How many people are in the country? We need to find out. I think it's at least several million more than we're being told. That the true population, based on the amount of water being used. I know Thames Water recently came out and said that they reckoned that there was a lot more people. I should look up the exact figures, but it was substantial. The amount of water being used in their area is way above what the official population is supposed to be. I think an issue that will also run is that accommodation that really should be going to local people who've been on the housing list, sometimes for years and years, will be going to migrants who've come across the Channel, Alan. And I think that's just going to feed into a great feeling of unfairness on this issue.
Oh, 100%. It just goes back to successive governments are not putting the UK citizen first, and they should do. The numbers of registered mobile phones in this country is higher than the adult population. And, so there's so many metrics that they can use to try and actually estimate the number of people in the country, and it's a lot higher than the official figures. And we need to deporting, and it won't happen until we have a change of government. There's problems in culture because a lot of you said 200,000 is the number of people who come here illegally. The majority of them are from a different culture, so they're not assimilating. They're not blending in. They're not living by our laws. So we do need to do something drastic about it, and quite quickly. There's more people who come illegally than the size of our armed forces. So it is worrying. When 25,000 militia started marching on Moscow, Putin was worried. If we have 200,000 people here who we don't want here, and they find a leader and they get put together as a group, we're in trouble.
Yes. Do you see it in? I mean, that's quite stark, Alan. Do you see it in those terms? Do you?
Well, we are moving towards civil unrest, whichever way.
Yeah, I would have to agree
got it wrong. And, you know, we talk about two-tier care, but we are creating a two-tier society. And we are moving towards South Africa. The people that, you know, who can afford to will try and protect themselves. If you can afford it, you'll put your kids through private education. If you can afford it, you have private health insurance and you pay for your medicine that way. We have gated communities in Bromley, in Westminster. Individual roads are paying for security because they can't trust the police anymore. You know, we're moving towards a broken society, and the trust between government and the people it's tenuous now. I can see.
I think the T word
in the city, but they possibly could be civil unrest quite soon. And the shame is, it's obvious. We can see it.
I think trust is important. I mean, we're certainly, I think today in, you know, post-Christian Britain and with many of the changes that we've seen, I think we're becoming a less cohesive, less trusting society. Our sense of shared values, you know, what's right and what's wrong, is being eroded. I mean, that's not just down to people who come into the country, but I think there's certainly less trust in our institutions, less trust in our political parties, and in, you know, and in business.
But why is it, Tim? Is it because
I know.
You know, how do they attack reform? They either attack us personally, they go for the person. Nigel saying hurty words apparently in the playground 50 years ago, or Labour are still now leafleting saying that reform wish to privatise the NHS and it'll cost you 30 grand if you want a hip replacement. Reform policy has never been that. That is based on an interview Nigel did about 14 years ago when he said maybe in the future the country might have to look at an insurance-based system. And
yes, he said that in about 20.
Labour Party are using that, saying reform that never even existed then. It wants to privatise the NHS. So, do you wonder there's no trust in politics?
Yeah, I think so. I think the public are rightly fed up with all the name calling and the mudslinging, and you know, I watch Prime Minister's Question Time most weeks. I mean, it's pure theatre. And actually, this week, finally, the Speaker threw one particular MP out for being, shall we say, a bit over boisterous. But, you know, the name calling and the finger jabbing and all this sort of thing, you know, really, it's very unseemly, and, you know, no wonder the public are fed up. But look, we must move on, and we've got two more of our stories left. But first, we'll have a quick look at a show that's been on Unprecedented recently and shown to people in Texas, I know, as well. And that show, which you can see here on Unprecedented TV, is called Full Throttle. Here it is. Okay, thank you, Studio. And that's one of the other shows that you can see on Unprecedented TV. And as I said at the beginning of the show, you can find us on YouTube and give us a cheeky subscribe, and then you'll get access to all the shows, including this one. Okay, so let's go on to our penultimate story. This is from the Mirror, and this is from this is a topical story that I think will run and run. And it's also very much in focus now because of the World Economic Forum in Davos and everything that's been going on there. Interestingly, Starmer not going, despite having said in an interview when asked, would you prefer Davos or Westminster? He says Westminster. Sorry, he said Davos, not Westminster. Okay, so we'll come back to that one, and let's go on with the stories that are on the screen at the moment. So, Alan, we've got a choice of three here. We've got Farage takes aim at UK's major banks. We've got Elon Musk talking about his latest launch, or we've got Brits have been pessimistic about the economy for a whole decade, which to me indicates how deeply embedded some of the dissatisfaction in our country is. Any of these appeal to you to take up?
Well, the excuse me, Farage taking aim at the UK banks, that's old story. We've been saying that for a long time now. It's completely a waste of money. We're just throwing billions down the drain. So it needs to stop. And we started this. We put it forward. We don't want to basically pay interest on the reserves from quantitative easing. No other country does it. Since we've highlighted this, a lot of other people have actually said, in finance, yes, they've got it right. We should stop doing this. So, Richard Tice is being, he raised it initially, and Farage has taken it on board afterwards. It's been our policy for a long time. Nothing's changed. Nothing's new. I think the only difference possibly is the fact that we're engaging now. We've got a very much a two-way conversation with the industry and big business in the city. And we had a wonderful evening at Bloomberg probably about 2 months ago now, where we engaged and we said, come to us, tell us what it is you want us to do when we actually form the next government. It's all part of our getting ready for government program.
Yes, I know Reform are putting in, led by Danny Kruger, putting in quite a lot of work on, preparing for government. I just found just before we move on, I just found the Elon Musk story there quite interesting. I mean, say what you like about the guy, whether you like him or not, or you like his politics or not, whether you're on Twitter X or not. I mean, the guy is a genius. Look at his record: PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX, Starlink, which is getting the internet into Iran when the government is trying to close it down. And Elon Musk here, chief executive of SpaceX, it says, at, of course, World Economic Forum in Davos, which, as I said, Starmer is not attending, but Nigel Farage is. The company is exploring a potential listing in 2026, which promises to be a bumper year for floats on Wall Street. Let's hope that flotations on the UK stock market can do.
It's at an all-time low. So I know. It's another thing that's going to have to wait for a change of government to get some confidence back into our economy. It's not going anywhere. And actually, the pessimistic about the economy story I found was a bit more interesting because they're saying, oh, we're growing by a little amount. So isn't that great? Isn't that positive? But actually, no, it's awful. Where we could be doing so much better. We're deliberately putting ourselves in a winter with slim pickings when actually we could always be in a summer where there's a glut of everything. The problem is we've had people who are sort of anti-Brexit when really we should be anti-net zero. So Brexit friendly, net zero hostile is where we need to be for business. And unfortunately, we've had two governments which have done it the wrong way round.
Yes, Alan, it's interesting you mentioned winter. I think Britain at the moment, it feels a little bit like Narnia. What was it? Always winter, but never Christmas. With
coming out the closet.
Yes, exactly. Coming out the back of the wardrobe. Okay, so I think we've got that. We've got our next story ready now from the Mirror, and Russia must compromise in peace talks. We'll have that coming up in a minute. Here it is from the Mirror. Ukraine's President Zelensky will hold talks with Russia and the US in a bid to end the war. That's hardly dramatic news. But he warned Russian tyrant Putin that he must be ready to compromise to end the deadlock. Zelensky also lashed out at European leaders for failing to lead in defending his nation from Russia and being too slow and soft in responsible to the invasion of Ukraine. He told the World Economic Forum Europe should become a global force I don't know. I'm a little bit sceptical about that, Alan. Do you see Europe becoming a global force? I don't know.
Well, no, we don't need to be outside of NATO. This is the EU looking in a power grab by the EU again. They want control of everything, and they want the EU army. So no, NATO has worked well for us. The US puts in a damn sight more than pretty much everyone else put together. I think we're lucky to be in NATO, and Trump's done a great thing by getting the spending in NATO up by the people that weren't doing it. How many separate defence things do we need? The EU, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't need to exist. The countries can actually all trade together without this unelected body siphoning off money at every opportunity to try and control and do things. I said a long time ago that with the Ukraine-Russian deal, I think the way out of this, to actually find peace there, they may have to look at a sort of a 99-year lease, a bit like Hong Kong. And it sort of pacifies people. In some ways, it kicks a can down the road, and you get the peace. But then, politically, you can fight for the future of the country later on. But this time without guns. So I think there is a way out. But I think there might be at least, and again, trust in politics. The Tory party is saying that reform are Putin appeasers, and in fact Nigel said something about Putin as a leader before he invaded Ukraine the first time round, and after Nigel said that, Putin came and visited the Queen, so and then he invaded Crimea afterwards. So but the Tories still rattle on. We had a Tory MP in my children's school this week telling the school children, the impressionable school children, that reform is in bed with Putin because Nigel said this positive thing about him again many, many, many years ago.
Well, again, it was about
anyone,
He said it about. It's another comment he made about 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Was it a couple of weeks ago? He said Putin is a monster. But no, they don't use that. They don't report that.
No.
They say what you said before they invaded first.
Let's look at what you said 10 years ago.
Yes. And
yes,
so we've got a Tory MP going into a school, talking to impressionable young girls, telling them that the Reform Party is in bed with Russia because their leader admires their, and say, it's just ridiculous. So, this is where we are, unfortunately. We need a little bit of truth and trust back into UK politics.
Yeah, we do. We do indeed, whoever you support. Okay, Alan, let's get our final story. And we always try and make it a slightly sort of humorous or light-hearted one. The Sun is often a trusty supplier of said stories. So this is from the Sun. Size Maximus. For those about to pie, we salute you. Gladiators were really quite fat. Roman gladiators were not at all ripped and muscly like the Hollywood heartthrobs who play them, but were actually quite fat, a historian has revealed. Dr. Harry Sidebottom says Colosseum fighters, who some believed hailed emperors before they fought to the death, saying, for those who are about to die, we salute you. They would try to pile on the pounds to protect their bodies. And you've got Russell Crowe on the left, looking like, what is it? My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, leader of the Felix Legions, what was it, husband to a murdered wife and all this sort of good stuff. And then more like this on the right. I recently saw the film Nuremberg, actually quite an interesting film in which he plays a rather porky Hermann Goering at the 1945-1946 Nuremberg war crimes trials. What do you reckon, Alan? Are you a Gladiator fan? I did go and see Gladiator 2, but I mean, it was the blood was flying everywhere.
I haven't seen 1 or 2 actually, but I do share a birthday with Goring. So,
oh, you do, oh dear.
But, it's what's a modern day comparison? Probably sumo wrestlers, because you need to be large to do that sport, not necessarily ripped. And I think they are seen as sex symbols over there. And this little report here still says that they may have been a little bit chubby and porky, but actually they're still seen as sex symbols because of their position in society.
Yes, I know sumo wrestlers are sort of regarded as sort of cult heroes in Japan, and they certainly pile on the pounds or the kilos. I'm not quite sure what quantity of weight measurement they use in Japan. Oh well, yes, there you go. There's one on the left and one on the right. He's certainly looking pretty ripped on the left, isn't he? Yeah, very interesting. So yeah, that brings our show to a close. Thanks to the studio, thanks to friend of the show, Alan Cook. Alan, great to have you on again. And we'll be back again soon. Thank you for bearing with, coming right through to the end. There's Alan with Nigel Farage. Great photo of you both together. But as I said, we're not just a reform. We are perhaps sympathetic to reform, but other political parties and personalities are available as well. And we will be having many of them on the show. But our thanks again to Alan Cook. Thank you for joining us. And it's Tim Scott from Tim Scott Uncancelled signing off. And we'll see you next time here on Tim Scott Uncancelled on Unprecedented TV.